So, Jill, I was trying to do some research in terms of how many awards that you've won. You've won a million. So, I've got a few here.
Name them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
Well,
God.
to name a few, I've got Design Agency of the Year and Small Agency of the Year for Strategy Agency of the Year,
Yeah.
which is a funny award to
Yeah.
mention. You're ranked just last year in 2024, you're ranked number 58 out of all the independent agencies as on the One Show independent agency rankings, and you've
The one.
been shortlisted multiple times.
Yeah. The one show's great.
Um, you've won about a million ad rodeo anvils. We all know that from the Calgary Award Show, Marketing Design Awards. Even some work you've done on packaging has won awards for some reputable beer award shows, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are
Uh,
super fun. They just opened again today for this year, the Craft Beer Marketing
ah,
Awards, which are global awards. Yeah. We enter
gotcha.
those every year. Yeah. Those are
Amazing.
super fun.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and you have multiple reasons to do that, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
My side hustle.
Yeah, your side hustle. And then Applied Arts, of course,
Yeah.
you've won some awards there from a design standpoint. So my question is you've won all these awards. Like, tell me why you do it. Why do you submit some of your work for awards? Is it for recognition? Is it to show off to your clients? In, Acquiring minds want to know.
Okay. I think awards are super contentious, and I hear you, Derek. Like was an account director for a long time, and it was frustrating sometimes to see so much work being put into award submissions when you've
Mm,
got, paying client work on the go as well. I think awards are so important for our creative team. Like they really, that is how they build their book. That is how they advance their careers. The people that work here have chosen to live in Calgary.
hmm
They've chosen to live in a place that isn't necessarily, the center of the universe in terms of, being known for creativity yet, although we're working on
Mhm.
that. I think we owe it to them. We owe it to them to budget to have them enter their work in awards so they can be recognized. We've always sort of thought that when people are coming through here, we might just be a stepping stone in their career. That happened with one of our designers, Holly, who got, poached by Nike and got to go
Mhm.
work in Portland for a couple of years before she actually decided to come back and is now back at daughter.
Hmm.
But having those people win awards that get them profile and really assist their careers, I think is great. I chatted briefly to Paul Little, who's our ECD in Toronto, and to Kelly Pollock, who's our Chief Creative Officer. And they both really think that, and I agree with this, that work that gets awards is really good for the clients too, because it
Mhm.
shows client leadership. Like it can advance a marketing director's career. It
Hmm.
also shows when you go to an award show and you see a client winning a ton of awards, all those agencies want to work on that client. So then you get the pick of the agencies coming to you saying, we want to work with you. So,
Yeah.
when we go to the award shows and Kraft Heinz wins everything for Rethink, all of us are like, I really want to work on Kraft Heinz. If we
hmm
ever get the chance, we're going to jump at it. So it's a way to attract really good agencies to your brand and then to advance the careers of like individuals at both brands and agencies. So that's my very long, short answer.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about the traction part for other like yeah, I totally get it because you want as a creative agency to work with partners that are doing great things and they're pressing or pushing the envelope a bit and
Yeah.
yeah, I hadn't
One of
thought
our
about that.
one of our clients, his name's Adrian Foucault. He is the head of marketing for Pizza Pizza. So we work on the Pizza 73 brand,
Hmm.
and he was named Strategies Marketer of the Year last year, and it is a well-deserved title. And basically going through that list and looking at, the CMOs who've won that is a really great way to like prospect clients. It's like, I want to
Hmm.
work with these people who've been named the marketer of the year
Yeah.
by strategy, who look at sort of effectiveness and creativity, as being intertwined, which is great. So I think it's a really great way to find talent to recruit as well. You can go through the credit lists and award shows and the
hmm
creative report card that comes out every year that ranks all the art directors, all the copywriters, all the planners. It's a super helpful guide to who's doing really great work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very true about the piece that you said. It's a good way to reward some of your creative talent, and daughter has a house full of incredible, designers and art directors and copywriters and what have you. So yeah, that's something that I never thought of. especially from like a kind of like a personal branding standpoint, to have all
Yeah.
these achievements under your belt, that really does something for you. So I think, yeah, that's great that you're allowing your staff to do that as well.
Yeah, it's about a legacy. Like think of someone like Kelly. Kelly's won every award under the sun, and that's an incredible legacy for her. That's a
Hmm.
Yeah.
physical sort of tangible marker of how good her career has been. It's yeah, it's awesome. And it's not cheap. Like we have a budget dedicated to that. We don't do ads for Daughter, but we have a promotional
Mm.
budget and it all goes towards award entries pretty
Yeah,
much.
right.
No, it's
Yeah.
good.
Can
Yeah.
you touched on something about effectiveness and creativity, and I just wanted to, it's passion's thing of mine. I'd love you to hear from your take how you balance those two things, because sometimes there's creative just for creative sake, and then there's also obviously for a lot of companies the idea of a commercial impact, like what's the ROI, often gets asked of any kind of creative endeavor. So, how do
Yeah.
you approach balancing those two things?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I was in New Zealand, I was at BBDO and I judged the Effies
Oh yeah.
for 2 years over there, and I loved it. I got to read, we actually sat down in like a schoolroom with printed out copies of the Effies because it was the dark ages, and I read through these incredible case studies, and that the Effies to me have always been, as an account services person, the Effies are sort of they're the calm land for
Mhm.
me. We just entered
Yeah.
our first Effie this year, which is
Oh,
exciting.
Oh,
that's
Yeah, so
great.
I don't know if we'll get shortlisted, but it was a really great process
good
to write
luck. Yeah.
it. Thank you. Yeah, we entered the Own Cancer campaign for sustained
Oh yeah.
success, which has just been such a cool sort of tangible, raised a whole ton of money kind of thing. But I think that idea of when you're putting your case study together, you want to focus on what that award show values. So some of the award shows are all about, the craft. So ones that
Yeah.
require like a physical sample, it's like, that they're looking at things like the paper stock, and that's what it's
Mm.
judged on. It's not judged on effectiveness, it's sort of craftsmanship. So I
Hmm.
think it's good to know, what the criteria are. But I think when you're putting together a case study, if you can say, here's this amazing piece of work that got all this attention because it was new and fresh, and then it actually moved the needle, it's
Yeah.
like you should
Hmm.
be doing that, even if it's not one of the criteria. I don't think that ever hurts. And you shouldn't really be doing stuff that's not effective anyway. I think it's going
Mhm.
to be hard to
Hmm.
retain a client if you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like there used to
The
be
Good
a
point.
real tradition of gimmicks and dog walkers and people
Sure.
entering the old, the thing that you post and pull off a phone number and it looks like a ballet skirt, and the novelty business card. And it's like
Mhm.
I think people are pretty wise to that now. It's got to be a bit
Yeah.
deeper.
Yeah,
Mm.
totally. The fear is that you're doing a piece of creative specifically because you envision yourself getting an award, right? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess it's kind of like being a hockey player and you envision yourself winning the Stanley Cup. Well, you're only winning the Stanley Cup if you work together as a team and create an effective strategy to get there, right? So, um,
Yeah.
that Own Cancer ad, and that was featured on Ads of the World. It's like an online magazine, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive. So I'll put that in the show notes here because I think that ad, the more we own cancer, the less it owns us, is incredibly emotional and impactful.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Yeah, at that the writing of the Effie Award was a really cool process. I wrote that one, and just going through how they restrict the number of words and things like
Mhm.
that. They keep you really concise, and I think that's very helpful because you don't want the judges to be wading through all the verbosity that can accompany
Hmm.
these things. So
Yeah,
it was a really good process actually just to remind ourselves, how strategic it had been. I think it's
totally.
yeah, making those case studies, even when you're not doing it for an award show, is a really nice kind of, often you finish a piece of work and you're just on to the next piece to go back and revisit it and go, that actually was incredibly like a great process and a great outcome. It's actually kind of psychologically satisfying to do.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you,
I
can
bet.
I
Yeah.
just to dig into that
Yeah.
own cancer one, if you don't
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
do you know when you've got like an insight that can lead to this amazing outcome, or is it just that you're going through the regular process that you always do, and then all of a sudden you realize at the end that you have this amazing idea?
That one was a really great process. We actually worked together with the client on the strategy. So we developed kind of the bones of a platform, and we knew that we had this idea about, the Albertan spirit and why this cancer center, why was it being built in Calgary? Like, why was this the
Mm,
best place in Canada for it to happen? And we had this idea of like, this determination that Albertans have of kind of going up against the odds and getting shit
mm,
done. And it was this what was in our brief, the line was, you know, beating cancer is tough. It's a good thing Alberta is tougher. That was
Mm,
the thing that sparked that final line. And then we
mm,
came up with this owning cancer idea. And that process was great because they gave us access to the Patient Family Advisory Committee, which is
Wow.
people going through a cancer journey and the people supporting them. And so we concept tested with that group.
Mm.
mm,
And they were so sick of being told to fight. Like they were just like,
mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
so exhausted. And then this insight came out that, you know, when you get diagnosed with cancer, you lose control. Like,
Mm,
even if you're an incredibly wealthy person, no matter what your state, it just takes power away from you. So it was all about kind of giving power
mm,
back. So
Mm.
it was this kind of psychological, you can own your cancer journey. But then, like for a donor, it's like you can literally get your checkbook out and own a
yeah,
salary or a piece of equipment. Or,
yeah.
you know, it was a really, when we got it, we were like, oh, this is good.
You knew,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is gonna get some checks going. And it did. Yeah. And it
Yes.
also needed to be something that people could use for a long time. Like it was a 5-year
Right.
campaign, and they closed it after 3 years because they'd overachieved their goal. So it
Wow.
Wow.
was, yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And
Hmm.
you've just introduced a head of strategy to your business as well,
Yeah.
which you know, we should actually have her on this podcast to
Yeah. She's
chat
awesome.
sometime. You mentioned something about you know, the submission process. I was trying to segue towards that.
Oh, yeah.
How much money it costs, you
Time.
know, some of the word count in terms of you can only have this amount of like you have a max amount of word count in your submissions. What can you say is the biggest mistake that agencies can make when they're submitting work for these award shows?
I think it's not getting to the point quickly enough. I've
Mm,
been the director of judging, director of entries for Ad Rodeo, and you get to see kind of how many entry submissions the judges have to look through.
Mm.
And, you know, you think you've got this like wonderful 7-minute film of a case study entry, and it's like the judges do not want to see that.
yeah.
It's like the case study itself is a piece of persuasion. So it's
Yeah.
like get to the point quickly, like set up the problem, like have some tension, set up the strategic solution, then set up and then, you know, reveal the outcome, but do it in a really
Mm.
snappy way. Motion is the best thing for that. I think video, we're really lucky that most award shows now, we're lucky and cursed. They want a video, which takes
Mm,
longer, but it also gives you the chance to create emotion around what you did. So you can show media reactions, you can show, you know, animated graphs, you can use punchy music that kind of keeps things pacey.
Yeah.
So I think
right.
it's got to be an entertaining thing to watch as well from a judging point of view. So I think spending time on the videos, we do a lot of that. We always leave it to the last minute. Every year we say we're not going to, and we do. But we also get to use those videos in new business pitches. So those videos are, you know, they're not just specific to
Yeah.
That's a really good
an
point.
award show. We use those to go, and we put them on the website. We put them on
Yeah.
social media. We sort of feed them out over the year. So it's basically forcing us to develop a better library of new business assets, which is
True.
just often at the last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was about to say, you've used the term case study more
Yeah,
often than you've used, you know,
entry.
awards
Yeah.
or entries or whatever. And I think that's a great way to look at it is you can repurpose these entries
Hmm.
for, you know, like you said, business pitches and whatnot, your
Mhm.
website, your social channels and stuff like that. So when you're thinking kind of bigger picture rather than just the awards, it kind of makes it a lot more worth the work
Yeah.
putting it all together.
Yeah, I have a budget as the growth officer at Daughter. I have a budget for like agency growth, and part of the award stuff comes out of my budget because it's business
Sure.
development stuff
Yeah,
as well as
totally.
it is
Yeah.
its profile and its reputation. And
Yeah.
that's another thing I guess about entering awards is as an agency based in Calgary, a lot of the award shows are dominated by Toronto agencies, and it's really nice
Hmm.
to see Calgary agencies entering more and
Hmm.
looking outside of just the local market and looking at like national level awards. I think that really helps to sort of to lift the profile of Calgary as a center of excellence.
Hmm.
I guess the other thing is it's like you can't I would imagine in some cases you have to get the client approval to publish it,
Mhm.
which then in your terms of your case study gives you that like proof point that you can use for business development, but also with the deadline of an agency or award submission forces you to do something of a professional version of a post-mortem. which
Yeah,
is kind of like otherwise you just let the days go by and you like you'll have good intentions of doing like an official postmortem, but not really ever getting around to it properly, you know?
yeah, and we ask clients if we can enter the work, but we don't give them approval on the case
Oh, okay.
studies because we're not billing them for it. This is work that we're
Right.
doing ourselves.
Hmm.
But afterwards, we send it to them, and the number of clients who've been like, "This is amazing," I'm going to show
Yeah.
this to my team, and
Hmm.
it's rewarding for them too. So
Yeah.
the work is great. Like it's helpful for them. We're like, put it on social, on your social
Yeah.
if you want. Like you're never
Yeah.
allowed to put the agency's name into the entry, so it doesn't look like it's from Daughter. It just looks
Yeah.
like it's about the piece of work. So it's yeah, it's something they can use as well. And they love it. Even if they have never seen one before, they're like, did you do this yourself?
Yeah.
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 Isn't that interesting from an agency side perspective where the goal here is really to make let's say if you have a working with a head of marketing or whatever to make them look like a hero based
Yeah.
on these awards. So that's kind of yeah, that's kind of a nice way to look at it as
Hmm.
well is
Yeah. It
really
ties it
makes them
all
look
up
like
in
a
a
hero.
bow. Like they
It
did
really
this
does.
hard work and there was an outcome and that should
Yeah.
be sort of, yeah, sort of
It's
celebrated. It's a
true. Like you
way to do
often
it.
just also go from campaign to campaign and you just never take a moment to like anybody pat themselves on the back
True.
for anything, right? And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like a nice moment.
Yeah, it is. I think it's sort of that pause. The problem is that you're often doing it kind of, after hours or as well as the client work. So
Sure.
what we're trying to do is when we complete something, whether we're going to enter it in an award or not, we're trying to do a case study while it's
Right.
fresh
Yeah.
because it gives the team some like closure on the project as well. And then we're not sort of stockpiling them all and doing them. I think late last week when the annuals entries
Hmm.
closed, there was a bit of
Yeah.
a late night at the office and everyone was eating pizza and doing award entries.
You're
Yes.
probably one of the only
Hmm.
agencies that do it as you go here. It's kind of like cleaning while you cook, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, how do you, so I want to talk about that client buy-in again. You kind of
Yeah.
mentioned it a little bit in terms of convincing a client to allow their campaign to be entered into something. Has there ever been any clients who have been hesitant or pushed back on this? And how do you kind of toe the line with those conversations?
Yeah, we've never had a client refuse to have something entered. I think maybe the hesitation comes sometimes, and we've never had sort of a bad reaction to a case study video, but I think you want to set up the problem as being as bad as possible before your work solves it in a case study. So
Hmm.
sometimes you're taking everything negative. This brand was in decline and it was slumping, and they're like, oh God, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
well, it kind of was, but we need to dramatize it to make the turnaround. So you're not,
Yeah.
you're sort of, it's the emotional tenor of setting up that tension can feel a little uncomfortable. So I think that can be an issue. The client that we entered the FE for this year, they actually agreed to split the entry fee with us, which was
Oh,
great.
wow.
So they really wanted to see it recognized as well. And I've had clients writing, a lot of clients enter the IABC ones, the Golden Quills.
Mhm.
And those clients have often come to us and said, can you make us some assets to go with the entry? So those are more sort
Hmm.
of client-led, client-entered entries, and we support them with that. So I think there's that nice kind of give and take. It gives you a chance to go to your client and say, we want to celebrate this piece of work. We really believe in it. We're putting our money behind it in terms of the case study and the entry fee. And then if
Hmm.
they come forward and offer to share it with you, it's even nicer.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. It's like how many award shows are there? Can
Oh
you
God,
list off
so
as
many.
many as you can think of
I
that,
wrote them
as
down.
Calgarians?
I
Did
wrote
you?
down the ones we enter. Okay, so
Ah,
in
okay.
Canada, we enter the Anvils, the Art Directors Club of Canada, which is the ADCC, Applied Arts, the Canadian Marketing Awards, and Strategy Agency of the Year. And then Campaigns just released a new Agency of the Year award, which I think is open now. And I don't think we're going to enter this year, but maybe next year. Then in the US, we enter the One Show and Communication Arts. And then in the UK, we enter D&AD and the Immortals. The Immortals is the award show of Little Black Book, which is a
Hmm.
membership-based thing. And then one day we want to enter Cannes. So I've been lucky enough to be at Cannes when I was at BBDO and to win a couple of Lions. And it is I call it a festival of creativity. It's the most
Hmm.
inspiring place to be. And at Cannes, you get to like walk around the halls each day and you see all of the work. And then you go
Mm.
back that night and you see what won. So you get to see every entry, which is just remarkable. And we used to go around and like pick, sort of bet on who was going to win. And it's cool just to see hundreds and hundreds of pieces of creative work.
Mm.
It's amazing. It's such a if anybody ever gets the chance to go, can sound pretty pretentious and it's super expensive to go, but the amount of value I got out of going was incredible. It was super
Mm.
cool. So they're really expensive to enter. We've never entered Cannes as daughter, but maybe one day we'll get there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Someday for sure.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
also quickly, just on like when you're talking about building these case studies, I'm kind of also curious. There's so much data, and and I'm sure you're looking for results and all that stuff, but you're also trying to get that storytelling angle, and as you talked about the emotional hook at the beginning.
Yeah.
What have you learned in that process of like crafting these case studies? Because I feel like what you learned there could apply to just about anybody trying to convince somebody
Yeah.
about any kind of direction that they want to go in.
I think it's making it fresh and interesting. It's even the way that you visualize the data. Like we just entered a campaign for Pizza 73 where we were selling, triple XL pizzas. And so we did the pie graph was a pizza. And, you
Hmm.
make the data, you spend some time and effort making the statistics as engaging as the work itself. So it's like,
Mm.
and you say, and it was this many pounds of cheese and this many pieces of salami, and you do it like a proper, like serious graph. And
Hmm.
it's kind of have some fun with it, like take stats that are impressive, big numbers, but then present them in a way that's creative and engaging.
Hmm.
So yeah, but sifting through all the data and deciding what to use is
Yeah.
tough. And attribution stuff can be really tough too. It's like, especially with the FEs, it's like you need to be really specific about we know that this was the reason that this did this, and
Right.
that's tough. That took me a long time.
Yeah.
That's sounds delicious, the pizza
Yeah, the
stuff.
pizza one was great.
Yeah.
Sold a lot of
Um,
pizzas.
Yeah.
yeah. We only have 2 minutes left. I would love for you to chat about what Daughter's up to, all the things that are going on in Daughter, and so on and so forth. So if there's anything you'd like to celebrate in terms of Daughter, which is ironic since we're
Yeah.
talking about award shows and stuff like that, uh, the floor is yours.
I love that. Thank you. I just think I think January is always really tough. I think you get to the end of January and it feels like it was 7,000 days and everyone's exhausted. I think we're really just trying to keep our team's morale up at the moment. So we're trying to celebrate the wins and talk about, we just had one of our junior designers present at our agency status today. She just did her first animation job and it's for the
Hmm,
Calgary Wild ticketing campaign.
Mm.
nice.
And she's wanted to do a lot more on motion and she did such a great job and she got to present her work and everyone we do snaps instead of claps, so everyone like gave her snaps. But it's taking those day-to-day things where people are coming into work and they're like giving you a piece of their soul, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's just like more. I think taking the time to just celebrate things. We've won a few pieces of business this year, which is a lovely way to start a year. We had a
Hmm.
very bad year on pitching last year, pitched a ton of stuff and hardly got anything. So
Hmm,
it was nice to see fortunes kind of turn around a bit. Yeah, I'm feeling good about the year. The tariff situation is crazy. It's like
Hmm.
everything sort of stopped, and then it's this reprieve of 30 days feels really uncertain.
yeah.
So I know there's going to be some need to keep morale up and to keep people sort of feeling positive. I think celebrating those little wins daily is great.
Love
Yeah.
that. Anything else, Mark?
No, I'm just super excited that we got a chance to chat with you. This is
Yeah,
really,
Yeah.
it's
same.
such an, like, it's one of those things that happens all the time, award shows, and then I just never really spend that much time thinking about them and the
Yeah.
process behind them. And I think you're right. Like, it's really good for agencies, if you can do it, to spend the time to do it.
Yeah.
For all the
Yeah.
reasons you mentioned, which is, and for the one that really resonates with me is helping the clients out and
Yeah.
understanding like what they're doing and using that asset to share within the business is super valuable, I think.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
reminding them, we all did a
Yeah.
good thing together. Like this was a great process, and we've given you this little sort of memento to remember it
Hmm.
by.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
absolutely. I have one last question before we go. Earlier, you
yeah.
mentioned you're the growth officer at Daughter. Does that make you God in the acronym then? Or
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
CEO, growth officer daughter, does it? Oh, I love that.
I was
Go
thinking about
ahead.
that the entire show. Oh, darn.
I'm the one that whenever we win something, everyone's like, oh God. It's like, no, it's a good thing.
Yeah, more work.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. Mark, as always, thanks for being on the show. And Jill, we'll chat soon. Looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me on.